This is the Property Secrets Podcast, presenting respected author, commentator and speaker Darren Standish, providing insights into the hidden secrets of real estate and building wealth through property.
Hi, welcome to this week's edition of Property Secrets, the show where we talk to experts from around the country to give us an insider's guide on things we need to know when we're buying, selling and developing in property. So this week I'm joined by Anthony Bucello. He's got a range of experience. Basically, he's been around property for a long time now, and he's primarily focused on buying and helping clients out with purchasing property, but he's got a range of skills. And I thought I'd get him on today just to give us a bit of an idea on some of the things we need to think about if we're out there looking purchasing property, and just some of the tips and tricks he can give us along the way. So thanks for joining us, Anthony. I wonder if you can just give us a background of how you got to where you are right now.
I started out in this caper 15 years ago, and it was a very different landscape 15 years ago when I told people I was a buyer advocate or a buyer agent, as we're also known. The landscape's definitely changed. If you did a Google search on buyer agents 15 years ago, you might come up with half a dozen to 10 options. You do a Google search now, and there's a lot more buyer agents out there now. I actually believe that's a great thing, and that just means that our little industry is growing, and I think there's still massive room for growth in our little industry as well. In 2011, I started National Property Buyers in Melbourne, and primarily to provide buyer advocacy services to clients. However, we also provide a couple of other services, namely property management and vendor advocacy. And as the name suggests, we intend being a national company. We're 5 years in, and we've now got offices set up in Melbourne, which is head office, Brisbane and Adelaide. And we're working hard at the moment to get up off the ground in Sydney as well.
So it sounds like you're like the cutting edge of the industry almost. Like when you started out, people didn't necessarily know what it is you did, and no one else was using it. So you're sort of having to break through that sort of mold. Have
Absolutely.
What you do actually, has it changed as you've developed as well, or as other people have come on board? Did you have to adjust your business as well, or basically you had that vision from the start and you've just run with it for the last 15 years?
I had the vision from the start and sort of ran with it. I do believe there's been some change over time, and I think the biggest change is awareness out there. And whilst you could argue that our industry is still in its infancy, it's come a long way, and there's still a massive amount of growth to go, I believe.
Sorry for interrupting. Can you give us a bit of for some of the people that aren't aware what a buyer's advocate is, or a buyer's agent, or how you describe it, because as far as, I thought you just get on the internet and type in, I want to live in, Smith Street, Smithfield, and then I can just buy it myself. Why do I even need you,
and that's a very good question, and that's a question we get asked by many people. We find these days more and more people are more time poor, so they don't actually have the time to do the searching and the inspecting to shortlist the most appropriate properties. And we buy for both owner-occupiers and investors. And there's a different mentality when it comes to buying to live in compared to buying to invest in. When it comes to owner occupying the property, so they're actually going to live in it, it's a bit, there's a lot of emotion involved in that purchase. Whereas with investors, it's more about the numbers. Well, it should be anyway, and we like to educate our clients to think like that rather than have an emotional sort of attachment to the property. There is a massive amount of time and legwork that's required in the search phase. So we save our clients a hell of a lot of time by not having to go out and inspect all those properties. We'll only send them to properties that we've already shortlisted, inspected, and approved for recommendation. So they're going to save a hell of a lot of time. That's the first thing. Now, you might say, yep, but a lot of people out there got plenty of time, and that's absolutely fair enough. I believe one of the main strengths of using a buyer agent would be the actual property selection, particularly when it comes to buying an investment property. Now, with our home buyers, owner-occupier clients who are buying to live in, we've always got a little bit of an investment cap on anyway. I mean, we want them to be buying good property that's going to appreciate in value, and it's going to be in high demand or highly sought after in the future. But that is a more emotional decision, absolutely, and it's more of, we're not in the habit of telling people where to live or what to live in. However, once we've worked out where they want to be and what they want to be in, we'll ensure that they buy the best possible option, and a property that's going to appreciate in value. So property selection, in my opinion, is one of the critical components of purchasing well in order to achieve wealth creation later on. And then finally, this is our day job. We're negotiating, we're talking to selling agents all the time. We believe we'd be able to out-negotiate the normal person out in the general public when it comes to real estate. So we're doing this day in, day out. The key to negotiating well is to do the research and understand values, areas, how agents do things, and not only do agents vary in the way they actually go about their business from within agencies, but all agencies do things differently. So it's important to understand the process and the rules of engagement when you're getting into that negotiation. And finally, we get access to a lot of properties that are not publicly advertised. So we call those off-market listings, or quiet sales, if you want to call it that. And we're finding, particularly as we speak today, that there are more off-markets out there than ever before. We've been certainly able to secure some of those for our clients at very good prices. But the key is to be able to get access to them. So there are other opportunities out there other than just looking on the internet.
So not everyone, I'm sure you've seen other people that maybe haven't used your services, or people that have gone out and done it alone and or maybe come to you after they've already had troubles themselves. If you look at the top 3 mistakes that people make when they're out, purchasing a property that you sort of, through your service, then you sort of eliminate some of those mistakes, I'm sure. But what are the top 3 you'd say, if we don't have access to yourself to come and help us out with buying a property, what are the top 3 things we need to think about if we want to make sure we get the right property for us?
So you need to establish clearly what your goals are and what your needs are. And so, again, that's going to vary whether it's for a property to live in, so a family, as opposed to an investment property. Number 1 tip would be to do the research. And that requires a little bit of time spent, whether it's online, but also getting out, understanding how auctions work, for example, depending on what state you're buying in, how agents operate, and particularly getting a feel for prices in the particular area that you might be looking in. So that would be probably the number 1 tip, and that is to do the research. Second tip would be to be realistic about what you're actually looking for and going to be able to afford. And when I say that, we speak to a lot of people who come in and meet with me, and we have a chat about what they're sort of wanting to achieve and what they've been looking at. And quite often, within a couple of minutes, I've worked out that that they've been unsuccessful simply because they've either been looking for the wrong property in that area, or they're simply looking in the wrong area for the type of property that ticks their boxes. So that would be my second tip. Third tip, I would say to actually understand floor plans and understand natural light component of the actual property. So actually dig a bit deeper into what the actual attributes of the property are and how that may affect the value.
One of the things I'm big on is obviously trying to use technology to try and make our life easier, I'm sure. And I'm sure using that every day, trying to get out there searching for properties and looking for properties. How are you using technology to try and make things easier, obviously for you, but also how can our if we don't have access to yourself to help us out, how can we try and use technology to make things a bit easier so that when we're shopping around, we're not wasting all that time?
Well, that's a difficult one. You firstly need to obviously understand what you're looking for. But I would suggest to people, if they don't want to utilise the services of a buyer agent or buyer advocate, is to actually subscribe to some of the online databases that you can subscribe to. For example, RP Data, to actually, and that will cost. It will cost a fee. However, I find that particularly in the research phase is going to be a massive help when it comes to actually working out what the property's worth, and then that will determine how you negotiate.
And what about things like, are you using, obviously the mainly now it's on the internet, on realestate.com or Domain or one of those sort of web real estate portals, and do you sort of rely on the information on there much, or do you sort of just think, oh, I'm not really sure, maybe we'll have to go and see it? Because you don't want to go and look at every single house, otherwise you'd be too busy. How do you sort of judge to see whether it's worth going and have a look and where not?
So first and foremost, it's the location, and there are better pockets in just about every suburb than others. So before it even makes our shortlist that we would go and inspect, it needs to be in the right location. So that would be the number one point. And then when it comes to the actual property, the professional photography that's on the portals such as realestate.com.au and Domain always make properties look fantastic. And I would suggest strongly that you actually get out to have a look at those properties that have been shortlisted and get a real good feel of things like security and natural light and things that you can't actually see through that professional photography. And the other big one there is the actual size of the rooms, which is quite often not available on the internet.
And the way I imagine it's sort of, you've got the real estate agent selling the property and you're obviously helping purchase the property. You guys are trying to do the opposite things, basically. The agent's trying to get the highest price for the vendor. You're trying to get the best price or the most suitable property for the purchaser. They're sometimes, I'm sure, they're conflicting at the end of the day. What's some of the ways that you probably see little tricks that agents play to try and create this extra value in a property, which you can probably see through because you're so experienced? Is there some things we should look out for if we're seeing a property being marketed or we're talking to an agent, and some things we should just be aware of if we're trying to buy a property, knowing that it's just one of the games that agents play?
Yeah, my advice there is to ask lots of questions of that particular selling agent. And again, if you've done your research, you'll actually have a pretty good understanding where the property sits price point wise. Unfortunately, there's always going to be what we call unrealistic vendors. They are the vendors that have got unrealistic expectations in terms of price. Now, to their credit, quite often their expectations are very high because the selling agent told them that that's what they were going to get prior to actually them signing on. So that's a fairly typical process where agents, what we call buy the listing, LR, they'll tell the vendor they're able to get a higher price than probably what they are able to achieve. And then they spend, the next 2, 3, 4 weeks trying to condition their clients down to the right sort of level. Again, it all comes down to the research and understanding what the intrinsic value of the property is. Bearing in mind, particularly for owner-occupiers, it's important to understand that different property is worth different amounts to different people for different reasons. So you may find someone who's, their kids are going to be able to walk to school and, work is just around the corner, may place a higher value on a particular property for that particular reason, which is in many cases absolutely fair enough. Or it might be because you're close to, family or friends or whatever it might be. Property prices can vary depending on who that property is for and what sort of value they've placed on it.
Just helping me understand the process as much as anybody, I suppose. Just so that obviously someone says, "Hey, I want to buy a house to live in, or I want to buy an investment property." Then should they come to you? Should they come to you with pre-approval, or do you help them through that process, or how can they work out what they can do and what they can't do?
Yeah, so most clients would come to us already with a budget in mind, and they've already sought independent advice from the broker or bank or lender or whoever it is they might be dealing with. However, we do have people see us that haven't quite worked that out yet, and we're able to. We don't have an in-house finance arm. However, we can refer them to reputable people that we believe would be able to look after their best interests and get the right sort of loan product for them. But either way, we can assist and get the ball rolling, whether they've got pre-approval or not.
And do you find sometimes, obviously, then you know how much they've got to spend, and they come in there with a preconception of, okay, this is what I want, this is how much I want, I want this many bedrooms and bathrooms, I want to live in this location.
Yep.
I'm sure you have some sort of situation where you talk through what they're looking for and what they want. Do you occasions have clients where this is what they want, and then you have a chat to them, and then they find out, well, maybe that's not what I want, and maybe there is a better option? Do you give advice?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, the last thing we want to be doing is looking for a property that's not possible to be able to buy in a particular area based on their budget. So, we have a fairly in-depth discussion at the very beginning in terms of what they're looking for and what their needs are. And if they sort of say that they want it to be in a particular suburb and we just don't think it's possible, we'll tell them up front. So, and very honestly, and we'll actually show them and prove it to them with some sales data that we would have access to. We get them on track. So, if someone wanted to buy in South Yarra, for example, and they had a certain budget, but we knew that budget wasn't going to achieve purchasing the property that they were really wanting, we may then suggest some other areas that are similar to South Yarra, still close by, but ones where we know that they're going to be able to afford a particular property in that area. So very, very, very common that we get people wanting, how do you call it? They've got a champagne taste, beer budget.
Yeah. And what sort of process, sort of the time of this process? Obviously, they come to you, they've got pre-approval, they sort of know what they want. You can get on there and help them through the process. Is it, something they're buying a property within a week, or is it something that usually takes months or years, or what's the sort of time frame between, on average, I suppose, between coming and seeing you and then actually being able to find the property that suits them?
Yep, and that's another good question, and another question we get asked quite a lot. So I've actually gone back and worked out a bit of an average. Now, it does differ if you're an investor compared to an owner-occupier, and rightly so. As I said, the owner-occupiers have got emotional attachment, and quite often it takes a little bit longer to actually find the ideal property that ticks all the right boxes for them. On average, owner-occupiers are with us for around that 60 to 65 day mark. So again, that's an average. Some clients would purchase within 2, 3, 4 weeks. Some may take 3 months, but on average, a couple of months for owner-occupiers. Investors are very different. As I said earlier, we like to educate our clients. It should be more of a business decision, not so much an emotional decision. Within a month, so 30-day average for our investor clients, we should be done and dusted. Again, we're not motivated by how long it takes to actually purchase a property for a client. We are motivated by making sure our clients buy good quality property. And whether that takes a week or 6 weeks, it doesn't really worry us. We're just more about making sure clients buy the right type of property at the right price. But on average, investors, 30 days, so a 4-week sort of turnaround. As I said, some might take a couple of weeks, some might take 6, 7 weeks, and that's fine too. But on average, about 30 days.
So it really sounds like you are like a partnership at the end of the day. You come in there, you've got a shared objective, what we're trying to achieve, and you work through it together. And how does this sort of, obviously you going out sourcing properties, then you just send an email saying, hey, check this one out, or what's the next stage once you've found a property that suits what they're looking for?
No. We believe we're at the forefront of how we communicate with our clients. We've got an online client portal called Property Hub. That's our own internal software that we've had made specifically for our buyer advocacy clients, and we've also set up a version of the software for our property management clients. And what that allows clients to do is log in with their unique username and password. They get their own dedicated little, we call it a worksheet. And it's quite interactive. So once we've done the preliminary search, we will send out clients their username and password. That allows them to actually put feedback into the system, which alerts us pretty quickly as to their feedback and allows us to actually have discussions based on that feedback. And it's got all the bells and whistles, so it keeps track of exactly all the properties that we've shortlisted, what they end up selling for if they haven't sort of gotten to the stage where we're going to be negotiating on them. And all along, we're compiling a pretty big database of properties that we've inspected and got some detailed comments on. So Property Hub is what we use to communicate with our clients during the search phase. We're not robots, so once we're actually in the groove of searching for the property, once we find one, there'll be a lot more direct email and direct phone calls to the client to bring them up to date with the property that we've sourced for them.
And that's some real, I can imagine that the clients is loving that experience of just being able to sit back and relax and all the work's being done for them. I suppose, this is Property Secrets, so I suppose I better get down to now, see if I can get a secret out of you. I suppose what I'm quite interested in, we haven't touched on today the negotiating side of things, and obviously remembering when we're out talking to an agent, they're obviously acting on their behalf and they're looking out for their vendor. Can you give us a little secret of, what's a tip that we can get in there and make sure we can, wheel and deal the agent or some sort of way we can try and make sure we grab ourselves a bargain, I suppose. And that's what everyone's out there trying to do. What's something you can, or even, maybe even not grabbing ourselves a bargain, but a way we can make sure we get, the best deal for us. So can you give us some tips on that?
Yep, as I said earlier, and I know I keep harping on about it, but it all comes down to doing a little bit of legwork and a little bit of research about what you're actually buying. I genuinely believe the key to good negotiating starts with assessing the property first, because you don't know whether you're getting a good deal, whether you've actually done that homework first and foremost. Once you've worked that out, you're able to then harness the agent a little bit. Now, that's going to be a little bit more difficult for people who haven't dealt with agents on a regular basis. But the key there is to ask as many questions as you can. And it might actually mean asking the same question more than once. I find that having a number of discussions, particularly, and I'm based in Melbourne, and we love our auctions in Melbourne, and we're probably one of the auction capitals of the world. But in the week leading up to an auction, I would call that agent at least 3 times, maybe more, and I'll find reasons to actually call them. Even if I know the answer to those questions, in order to probe and understand what sort of competition levels are going to be at the auction, what sort of reserve price might be likely on the day. And all that information is going to actually determine how you bid and when you bid at the actual auction. Because there is some things that you can do at the auction in particular, based on the information that you've received, in order to maximise your chance of success at the auction.
Man, that's an awesome tip. And obviously it sounds like really the more information, the better, really, at the end of the day. And I suppose one of those things is you can't really, without, buying our first property or even our second or third property, we're just never going to get the skills and knowledge and experience of someone that's bought hundreds of properties or been involved with their clients building hundreds of properties. So if someone did want to get some of your help or get some advice or get some tips along the way, how would they reach out to you?
Well, you can go to our website, which is nationalpropertybuyers.com.au, and you can. There's a whole host of information on that website about all our services, and there's online forms that you can fill in, and we can get in contact. Alternatively, they can call our 1300 number, 1300 500 555, and someone will be able to understand their needs a little bit better and talk them through the process and exactly what we do and what we charge.
Fantastic, and thanks for your time today, Anthony. I learned huge amounts of stuff, and I'm sure our viewers did too. And I'm sure they're excited to get use some of your knowledge out there and get it all happening. So thanks for your time, and we'll look forward to talking again soon.
This has been the Property Secrets Podcast with Darren Standish. Learn more at propertyprosperity.com.au.